your job, try to find out your stress level. Because sometimes what the mind tends to do is that it will trigger to let you feel a certain pain, and which is all the mental aspect.
Yeah.
So whatever you're going through, always seek, professional
Yeah.
advice before you jump into it as to say, well, this is what I'm going through. It's also always good for you to know your body and understand self. But relax, get some sleep. If you're going through mental fatigue, try to get some sleep. Try to exercise, move your body, eat healthy. As they say, a healthy body creates a healthy mind. A healthy mind is a healthy body.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. David, please.
Yeah. I Bearing in mind, my journey started with medical interventions, medical explorations. Get my teeth in, and it was because I had that medical team around me that were working on what was going on within my body that we were able to get to diagnosis, get to pain management in those early days, which was medical interventions. I was having injections directly into the cartilage for every sort of 4 months for a couple of years, because that was the treatment guidance that was there. And I was very conscious of using the medical understanding and the medical knowledge in order to kind of learn more about myself. But as Eunice says, when there is no diagnosis, quite often the medical profession will look at, right, is this something that is being created by the body because the psychology is having pressure? And we can do a whole show just on that transference of coping strategy within the human being. But when you have physical pain and it's prolonged, it will automatically have an impact on your mental health. You will always have that question mark: is this going to happen again? Am I going to get another flare up? And for me, there is no trigger. There is nothing that says, if I do this, I will get a flare up. This is something that can happen just because my body says, okay, now it's time, and bang, there you go. So you're always questioning, is today the day I'm going to get a big flare up? And that has an impact. There's no way of sugarcoating that. There is no way of taking that away from us. And when you live with that, it has impacts on everything else. And that's what we want to kind of explore today. So when our mood is impacted because physical pain is in play, the people around us, unless they know what's going on, they just see you're in a bad mood. They don't know that you're dealing with pain, because you will always tend to try and shield people from the fact that you are going through that pain, because that's human nature.
You see, sometimes people do that due to pride, unfortunately. And one thing I always encourage people is, in order for you to get that support, you have to be able to verbally express yourself.
Yeah.
And a lot of people around you sometimes will feel as though, maybe you're going a little bit extreme. Again, ladies and gentlemen, when someone tells you that they're in pain, they're suffering, whatever their situation is going through, try to support them to the best of your ability instead of you assuming, because you never know what someone is sincerely going through.
Yeah.
The whole essence of life is to support one another.
Yeah.
And being that David is going through this, I feel as though, I need to support him to the best of my ability. But how can I do it is the $1 million question. If I'm David and able to communicate, and I can suggest some ideas to him, and he feels as though, well, maybe I try that, that's a way of support. You understand? But at the end of the day, it should be at David's comfortability.
And this is where communication and accepting this is the situation that we are dealing with. For me, and we've talked about this before, in the sense that having a team around you that you can communicate with what is going on means that they can then go, right, okay, so we understand that you're dealing with this right now, so we can back off on this issue or that issue because you're not going to be able to cope or you're not going to be able to deal with this particular physicality at this moment in time. And despite the fact that this week for the company has been a very busy week, I've not been at 100%, and therefore the team step up because I'm able to communicate, guys, I'm dealing with this, I'm not going to be at 100%, please bear in mind that you guys need to pick up the slack. And guess what? It all happens because that communication is in place. And Eunice is spot on that in the early days of this, I didn't want anybody to know I was in pain. That was a sign of weakness. That was a sign that, I wasn't coping with what was going on in my own body. And that's scary. But I had to learn that by bringing my team closer and the people around me closer, and by acknowledging what was happening, we could actually come up with solutions. And over time, I've learned various different ways of managing the pain when it comes in a way that doesn't cripple me from everything else.
The thing is, again, society plays a big part into our lives. Society tends to dictate to us in so many ways. Society, not to be sexist, but society says a man should not cry. A man needs to go through this. A man needs to do this. Which indeed, to some degree, I do understand that, a man needs to be a provider. A woman can be a provider as well. But the way society put a lot of pressure on men, it's hard. I'm dealing with Gary, which indeed, Gary Turner, which indeed is trying to show the vulnerability of both sexes. We're all human beings. We all suffer. We all feel pain. And I'm dealing with Georgina as well. She's dealing with hundreds of kids in Bath, and which indeed she'll be coming on as well. And she's showing her youths. It's okay if you feel pain. It's okay to cry. It's okay to speak on it.
I'll put my hand up. This week, I have cried. I have been...
There's nothing wrong with that.
There are times when the pain has been the only way I've been able to vent what that pain feels like, has been to release that emotion with tears. And I have no problem with putting that out and saying, there are times when we need that release.
Of course, definitely.
And it took someone who had been through military experience as a man to tell me, I must have been in my late teens, that if you don't tell us that you're in pain, we take it you're being lazy. If you tell us that you're in pain, that something's gone wrong, then we can adjust what we're doing, and therefore we can still get the job done.
Yeah. You see, the thing is that I don't want people to misunderstand the difference with vulnerability, weakness, and strengths. You understand? We all can be weak. We all can be strong. But there's a time and place for everything. Now, when we say vulnerability, that's not a sign of weakness. And as David stated, if you don't speak to someone and express what you're going through, hypothetically speaking, I have this throbbing headache, and I'm supposed to go into this meeting. And I decide not to go into the meeting. I'm just sitting in my office like this. People come in, they can take it as I'm stressing, I'm nervous, I don't want to go to the meeting. We as human beings have that us, the whole assumption aspect. We like to assume.
We have a desire to prove ourselves right.
There you go. So a lot of times, ladies and gentlemen, and that's something else dealing with, mental health. When you're stressing, you get this headache, you get anxiety, the butterflies. We spoke about that as well on our prior show, one of our prior show. And there's nothing at all. It's human nature. If you have an exam that you're going to take, you will feel nervous. If you're going in for your first day at a job, you'll feel nervous. Take a deep breath, reassess yourself. The mental is very strong. But anyway, I have a question, David.
Okay.
So with everything that you're going through, and you're not taking medication, so how is it that you're able to cope? Because I'm sure someone out there is watching this and is going through the same pain that you're going through. I don't want anyone to ever feel as though whatever you're going through alone.
Yeah,
There's
for sure.
someone out there always going through what you're going through. There's someone out there dealing with it in a different manner, in a different aspect. So do your research, please.
Okay. So bearing in mind, I've been dealing with this for over 30 years now.
Wow.
Okay. So when I say how I cope, have that backdrop in your mind. I've had a long time with this. I've had a lot of practice at how I deal with this. So one of the things that I will do will probably come under the banner of mindfulness, and being able to shut everything else out and just focus on what's going on within my body. I'm now able to, and I've learnt the hard way, but I am now able to zone that mindfulness into almost self-hypnosis, if you like, where I can pinpoint where that pain is at. And I can start to manipulate in my mind what I need my body to do. And I was describing this to people this morning, and the only way I can really describe it so that you guys can have an understanding, it's almost as though I can retract the nerves when I need to.
There's a doctor in Canada, I was reading up on him, Jensen. Now you should look up on him. What Dr. Jensen's team had done in Canada is the fact that they have done the research, because the brain actually, if you put your hand on the stove, you feel the pain. That nerve sends, the sense to the brain, and the brain will say, ouch, that's painful, remove your hand. You understand? What they have done is that they have found a way to cut some of the nerve senses that, like say you have a chronic pain. They have found a way in Canada, his name is Dr. Jensen, in Canada, where they can retrieve this pain away from you suffering so much. Now it's a test that is being done. They have yet to perfect it. But ladies and gentlemen, if you look it up, his name is Dr. Jensen. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to support so many of you.
Yeah.
Continue.
And for me, the functionality of being able to go into that zone, if you like, and pinpoint where that pain is, and in essence let the brain do what painkillers do. I'm turning off those receptors. So in the example that you gave, I touched something that's hot. If the nerve endings aren't receiving that message, that's hot, to go to the brain, for the brain to go, oh, heat, pain, oh, ouch, pull away. And all that happens in microseconds. But for me to be able to say, right, this swelling is pushing on these nerves, and I need those nerves to move away from that swelling. And that's the only way I can describe that what my brain does when I go into that place in my head of being able to say, right, there's the swelling, these are the nerve endings, and they're touching. That's painful, that hurts. So I need to pull these away because I can't do anything about this bit. I can only do what I can do with this. Now, whether that's my brain shutting off that receptor to say, no, we're not listening to you because we know what this is. So we're not in any danger. We're not at risk of life-threatening injury or anything else. So the nerve endings telling us that there's a problem, yeah, we know that because we know the swelling's there. Thank you very much. So we don't need to listen to you just yet. If that then carries on swelling and it touches again, then I know I've got a bigger problem. And that's how I know when I need to go to a medical support, is because the pain's getting to a point where my brain can't control that. You know? Now that's taken years to develop, and that's taken a lot of practice and a lot of trial and error in being able to do that. But after 30 years, I'm kind of quite able to kind of go, this has to be really bad for me to go, okay, I'm in pain now.
I remember growing up because they wanted to turn me into a rab pet, you know.
We still do.
Because what they wanted, because my ribs are abnormal as well, my rib cage, and they were wondering how was I able to function, because they have done so many tests on my rib cage and they noticed the abnormality. Dr. Silver, K. Silver, in Douglas Hill, in Brent Cross, on Douglas Hill Lane, you know, his lab, his practice have sent me so many requests for me to go be a lab pet. Now, it's something I've dealt with, which indeed I'm not complaining anymore, because as she said, as time goes on, you learn to deal with it. I played football, I played soccer, I played baseball, I did track, I did all these different activities. I'm coping quite well. Why should I go be a lab pet? But the essence of what I'm trying to convey on to you, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that David has been through this for over 30 years. He's been able to cope. He's been able to know the symptoms, when the pain is coming on, what he needs to do, and it's holistic. And meditation, knowing yourself, your inner self, also can help. But if this is just you at this beginning stages, you've been suffering for about a year or two, consistently go see your doctor. Let them find remedies. Technology has improved.
Yeah.
There are so many different aspects. I know, David, you're quite uncomfortable, you know, so I do feel your pain. David just came out today, ladies and gentlemen, to come spend a little bit of time with us because he has not been on here for a while now. So he just came out to come and, you know, spend a bit more time. But
I think the thing to bear in mind for anyone that is experiencing physical pain is accepting that the component parts of our humanity are going to be affected by that physical pain. Okay? I've said on previous shows, and for the best part of the last 20 years in private practice as a coach, and in training presentations, the human being is made up of three component parts: our physical, our emotional, and our psychological. When our physical being is in pain, it will impact on our emotional, it will also impact on our psychological well-being. We have to accept that that's what happens. The challenge comes when we try and deny that, and we try and shut out the physical impacting on anything else. Oh, I've just hurt my knee, it's fine. But at the end of the day, when the lights are off and there's no one watching, you're feeling emotionally drained. You're feeling psychologically evacuated, because the amount of pressure that physical pain is putting on the other components of your being is immeasurable. But by accepting that these things happen, becoming self-aware of all of those factors, it will allow you better coping capacity, because you're allowing those things to say, okay, yes, I've got this physical pain. Yes, that's going to hurt me emotionally. Okay, I am going to feel that. It's not just thinking about it. You're also going to have a psychological drain from coping with that amount of pain. Accepting that this is what happens, we are a whole being, it is holistic understanding and holistic coping that's going to give you the best remedies. The medical will be able to help you with the physicality. Mindfulness, time out, breathing exercises, they will all help you with the psychological and the emotional. But if you do not count those factors in to your coping strategy, you are counting them out. And you're counting out 2/3 of the coping strategy that you need for whatever situation that you're in, whatever pain it is that you're in.
You know, not just to come in to cut you short, there's something called health psychology.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? Which indeed deals with the physical and the mental. Now, we also, a lot of us that tend to be intrigued by the mental aspect, tend to do a lot of research, tend to want to know more. Now, health psychology is something that I never pay mind to. But since David's been going through this, it's something that I just been intrigued by, something I want to know a little bit more on. And I spoke to a childhood friend of mine actually this morning. He called me, Aubrey. He's a herbalist now.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the things this guy was telling me are like, wow, there's so many different herbs that can help the body. Now, I'm not here to promote that at all. Please, ladies and gentlemen, just as I stated before, I'm not here to promote the medical field, take your medication or not. You know, my opinions are my opinions. I cannot tell you what to do. Seek a professional, go see your GP.
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
So, thank you, David, always. So, what we can always do is convey strategies, strategy, different methods, different aspects of, ways to go about things. So when I when I was doing the research on, health psychology, is when I started understanding a little bit more about mental health. Mental health is something that's been around for years.
It's been around since the dawn of time.
But it was not acknowledged.
We don't. Well,
now it's coming more out.
Okay, I think that when we look at indigenous populations, native populations, ancient civilizations, they had a clearer understanding and acceptance of the balance between our psychology, our emotional, and our physical. And they worked everything in balance of all three, plus the planet. And what's happened over the last 1,000 years is we've moved away from that ideology of balance between all three. And over time and in the recent history of humanity, we've almost disconnected from the psychology and the emotional. And we're regaining it. We're learning now more than ever in the last 100 years the importance of the mind and the impact that it has on our physical. And that's through amazing work of people like Adler, like Freud, and the millions others. But when we look at the ancient civilizations, the native populations, balance is one thing that they all had in common. And where we lost that along the way, I don't know, but we are getting back to it. And it's taken us a little bit longer than maybe it should, because we don't like change.
Yeah, but but there has to be change in order to be growth.
Growth over change.
I think change over growth.
Okay.
Agree to disagree. I should say.
As we do near enough every week for those that join us.
As you all know, David and I always go back and forth. But whatever the situation is, Stephen King also, I was sent a link, which indeed I'm going to put out here right now. This gentleman is doing got something in reference to when we were growing up, how a lot of people were put into special education due to the fact that they did not understand it. So instead of them to say, this is what is wrong with this person, they were just actually put into special ed. Now, the director's name is Stephen McQueen.
Okay.
Stephen McQueen is an Oscar winner, and he has done so much. So if you or your child were put into special education and you have something to say, contact BEYA at ROGANProductions.net. And the number is 007-538-712227. This is just a lot of things are just coming to, our awareness. People are being awakened now.
Those things that we'd forgotten that were there before, that essence of balance, that essence of connectivity between our physical, emotional and psychological, that's all re-emerging now. And this is where, when we have that physical impact from pain, our mental health, it is impacted. We can't deny it. We can't carry on going, well, it's just that. We are connected entities. It's what every human civilization since the dawn of time has understood up until the last few hundred years, really. And we're getting back to it. Like you say, we are waking up on so many different levels right now. We are waking up to a whole heap of those disconnections that have taken place. And for me this week, I have seen how people respond to just being told exactly what that pain situation for me has been, and how the mental impact has rippled out to them.
Not to cut you short, Sue just stated that, her watching you going through this pain since your diagnosis has been quite, let me use the word, horrific for her. And I can imagine, Sue, I can definitely imagine. No one wants to see their loved one suffer, and you standing there feeling helpless as to say, what can I do? How can I help you? And you just feel helpless. So we do understand what you're saying. We do understand your pain, Sue. But I stated into the the response into the chat, David is a strong young man dealing with all of this. There are a lot of days that are quite difficult for him. There are a lot of days that he's able to cope. And today, as we all can see, he's doing his best to cope. Even though he's smiling, deep down he's crying, ladies and gentlemen. And Helen also stated that, she feels horrible, how horrible the pain that you're feeling. So Helen is also, Helen Ash, she's also sympathizing with you, and she hopes that you get better soon.
Yeah, thank you, Helen. And Sue, I can only say on a personal level how much I appreciate and I understand the journey that you've had alongside me going through this. And I could not have got to where I am now without the contributions that you have made over the last 40 plus years. We're not going to give too much away. But being there at every stage of this and being able, for me as an individual, to be able to say, this is where I'm at now, this is the level that it's got to, that, Sue's part of that team. And being able to have that is fundamental to being able to cope. And we see it time and time again. When people are in physical pain and they do not reach out, they do not let people around them know what they are dealing with, the situation invariably gets worse, never gets better.
And please, sorry David to cut you, because I'll let you continue giving Sue all the praise in the world. But let me just say, ladies and gentlemen, when someone is going through pain and they express this to you, do not say, well, I know Bobby, he's been through this, and he's not complaining as much as you are.
Yeah.
Do not do that. You are going to make that person next time don't want to come to you and convey the pain that they're going through. Show a little empathy. Say, try to give them the best of yourself, the best support that you can give. Never compare someone with someone else's pain.
Yeah.
Everyone's pain is different. It varies. So on that note, I will let David continue.
Yeah, I'm just picking up on that point. When earlier on, I emphasized that I'd been going through this for 30 plus years. So my ability to respond to what my body is doing is going to be different from someone that discovered this yesterday. And for our coping capacities to be measured like for like is not fair on either of us. But neither is it fair on the person who is making that comparison, because you're not able then to provide support as you believe you are trying to. So whatever the situation that somebody presents to you, please accept what they are saying rather than your perception of what someone else is dealing with in that situation. Okay, first off. But I will finish the kind of reference to Sue's comment. Thank you. I could not have done any of the coping strategies without having you as part of that team, and that goes without saying. But publicly, thank you.
Wow. And Helen definitely acknowledged that. Helen just a lovely, tribute and appreciation to you, Sue. So
Yeah.
Sue, I know you have done excellent dealing with him crying in the middle of the night, waking you up. But however, we need to acknowledge people that support us.
Definitely.
We need to acknowledge people, period. Because you never know. We say the world is big, but in actuality, it's small. Because the people that you encounter today, you don't know when you're going to meet them again. The person that you're being rude to, maybe that's the person that you're going to meet for that interview. Or maybe that's the person who's going to be your surgeon. Or maybe that's a police officer that is going to be pulling you over. So
or the paramedic that's going to be pulling up when you're laying on the floor.
Exactly. So showing a little, kindness to people, and you never know what someone is going through. Showing a little bit of kindness can make a difference in someone's day throughout. That little bit of kindness, that smile that you just took to give someone, you don't know how horrible that day has gone. But you just, just say you encounter someone for just a few seconds. understand that everything, the laws of attraction, everything happens for a reason. Maybe you were there just to give that little smile, just to say hello to that person, because you don't know what pain they're going through. You don't know what kind of day they have had. So when you encounter someone, it's always good to show a little bit of kindness, just being humane at the end of it all. So going back to, the mental aspect, mental health, you know, mental health is becoming something that's being touched on so many bases. It's so many people now that are being diagnosed with depression, and all these different illnesses or, things that are going on in the mental aspect. Now, some of them are quick to run to the pills, the pain. When you drink alcohol, when you smoke tobacco, when you use drugs, that is not helping that aspect. That is just making the situation worse. So always try to have a clear mind. As I said before, a clear mind gives you a healthy body, and a healthy body can give you a clear mind. It's always trying to understand yourself, your mental being, your soul. And as David has gone through all the pain, everything he's gone through this period, one thing he has come to understand and realize is that I need to know me. I need to know my triggers. I need to know when it's coming. I need to know what position I need to be on so I can deal with the pain. And me sitting here right now with David, I can see his expression. I can see his whole body language, the discomfort he's in, but he's trying to cope with it. So there's no way nothing has been presented to you as to say, well, David, this research is being done. We're going to try, there's a trial coming up. There's nothing of the sort.
Okay, so with cartilage in the chest, there's very little that can be done. Simply because of what that cartilage has to do. It's there to keep your vital organs protected from the outside world, and the joint is there to make sure that as your lungs rise and fall, they're not hitting your ribs. So a couple of treatments that have been suggested along the way might sound a little bit barbaric. Talked about cartilage reduction, so that when the swelling comes, it doesn't take the rib out of line. Slight problem with that is when the rib's not swollen, or the cartilage isn't swollen, the rib would be lower down than it would otherwise need to be. We've talked about the risk of cartilage dislocation and the rib kind of softening to the point where it's not rising and falling as it needs to. Talked about things like putting clips onto the breastbone to hold the rib in place. Again, reduces the functionality of the rib cage to do its job. There is stem cell research that has started to look at whether that can kind of take away the impacts. But again, these things take time and they have to be done properly. As a child, as I was going through this, the treatment was injections into the cartilage. And yes, that feels the way it sounds like it would feel. Painful and kind of difficult to get used to. But at the time, it was a short-term solution because it was deemed a short-term condition. Over time, forcing the bone to move by forcing the cartilage to reduce its swelling, that has its own impacts. And now, 30 years on, I have to be mindful of those impacts, and therefore medical interventions are really a last resort. And understanding and being, as Eunice pointed out, having a clear mind so that I can know what my body is dealing with at any given time, means that I know when it's time to go for that medical intervention and that support. But until that point, I cope with it through holistic processes, organic control mechanisms that I've learned over time.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I have sent, the picture will be of David's chest, so that way you have a little visual of what he's
That's
going
not my
through.
actual,
Well,
it's not my actual chest. It's a representation of what.
his little chest, David's little chest. Now, the thing is that I cannot put enough emphasis on this, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to always understand that whatever that is you going through, whatever you're going through, you're never alone. There are people out there that are going through the same thing. So never feel as though you are alone, because you're never alone. Do your research, talk to your doctors. There are different kinds of support that you can reach out
Definitely.
to. There are different teams out there to support you. So never feel as though you have to go through this alone. The mental aspect, mental health is something that is on the rise. So if you're going through something, me personally, I don't believe in medication. For me to take a needle, you have to chase me down. For me to take a pill, well, I'll leave that alone. But whatever the situation is, however the situation is, understand that physical pain can sometimes be created by the mental aspect of it. If you're having a headache, there's some things when you go to your surgeon, you go see your doctor, they cannot, diagnose right away. A headache, a back pain, and so forth. That is all due to your mental.
No, it can.
Well,
I mean,
there are things that can cause back pain. Don't get me wrong. Things that can cause a headache as well. But to actually, for a surgeon to do a scan and say, well, you have a headache, it has not been done as of yet.
Yeah.
So that is all, according to a lot of studies that have been done, that is due to the mental aspect, the stress. If you're stressing, you have anxiety being created, nervousness, and so forth.
Yeah, and that's where understanding those three components of the human being. Oh, look at that. There you go, ladies and gentlemen.
That is David's chest, ladies and gentlemen.
That's a representation of that. I don't actually look like that.
That's how David looks.
But the sections that you see there in red, they are the jointed parts of the rib cage. And
can you explain it to us better?
Okay, so the breastbone in the center there, you will have cartilage that connects to the ribs, and when without the arthritis, without this condition, those ribs are joints, and like any joint, they move as they need to and provide the function for the rib cage. With costochondritis, what happens is those junction points can swell, and each one of those parts that you see in red can be pushed out of line. That has an impact on the way the lungs work, on the way the lower vital organs are supported within the body, and yeah, it's as painful as you might imagine, and then some, because once those ribs are out of line, that provides space on the inside for your lungs to move into. And for me, one of the hardest parts of carrying this condition is that the lung gets these little pockets where the air doesn't circulate, because that pocket has moved under the extra space that's been created by that swelling and that rib being out of line. And you have to force that trapped air out. And there's no way of describing how that feels. And there's no way of describing the taste of the inside of your own lung.
May I?
Go for it.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me just explain this to you in a layman's term, because let's go as to say you're suffering from back pain. As you can see, the spinal cord, that is what is behind the rib cage. You see that little bone in the back. Now, thank you so much for stretching this out. Now, imagine this white bits, which is the bone, which are the bones, now get damaged. What happens is that in between this bone, there's let's say jelly-like. Now, if that jelly is away, now the bones will touch. That will give you severe pain. When you bend down, hard to stand up, it creates so much conflict. It gives you a lot of discomfort. Okay, so when you see a lot of people having back pain, that's due to the fact that the spinal, depending on where the pain is, the lower back or the higher back, they have the T3, the T11, and so forth on all backs of the spinal. So let's understand, the pain that David is feeling, it's like the bones are there and they're hard. So it's just a bit of discomfort. Now, some of us, as we're looking at this x-ray, imagine David having to breathe and something of a sort. He has to suppress the bones, push out, because for you to breathe, you have to expand and contract. So, with that said, please, bring us to a close on this.
Okay, so this week, for example, with the 5 ribs, 3 ribs on the left hand top of the left, and 2 ribs on the top of the right, and then 2 ribs lower down, all being swollen. The use of the rib cage to support the breathing mechanism becomes difficult. Flexibility becomes difficult. Mobility becomes difficult, because just imagine you're sat in a chair and you want to stand up and go through the functionality, the biomechanics of that. Invariably, your head will go forward, your shoulders will go forward, and you'll lean into it. You'll curve your back in order to get the momentum to move forward. With this condition, that's not possible without creating excruciating pain. So everything has to be rigid. Everything has to be held in place in order for the rib cage to carry on moving. Now, some interesting kind of touch points on who else carries these kind of condition. JFK carried this condition. For JFK, it was diagnosed after he had military service.
JFK was the former president of the United States. Elizabeth, from Trinidad, just says she's sending you love from Trinidad.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
David, as we come to a close, I personally want to just say, I wish you a quick recovery. I don't like to see you in pain. I don't even like talking to you on the phone and you expressing what you're going through. So I wish that technology can improve so that way they can find, a cure, a better remedy.
Well, I've lost count of the number of times I've gone to the Body Shop's website looking for a new rib cage. But if there is anybody that's working on those projects, a new rib cage is probably the best option. But I totally appreciate the support. I want to thank the entire team.
Thank you for coming on here to share this with us.
I hope letting people know that, one, the level of the situation for me, but also that this can be managed without medication. This can be managed with very good psychological support and a really good team around you, and amazing communication about what it is that you're dealing with that pain. Those 3 elements have to be in place for any support to work. You will never ever be able to manage the physical impacts on your mental health or your emotional well-being if you do not have those three things in play. But please, if you are experiencing any physical pain, whatever the cause of that is, please start the process of investigation with medical professionals. Do not try and do this through Dr. Google. Dr. Google is never going to give you the best solutions without those other three things in place: effective communication, effective team, and your own awareness of what it is that you are dealing with. You have to have all three.
Thank you so much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as we come to a close, is there anything you want to add?
Guys, take care of yourselves. We've said it over and over again. The key to looking after yourself is your own self-awareness. Get to know your body, get to know yourself, understand what works for you, and don't count anything out.
And, you know, we're supposed to be closing, but Lady Zen just says she wants to ask a question. Okay, Lady Zen, please ask your question. And hello, May, how are you? We acknowledge each and every one of you. Okay, Lady Zen, what's your question? Oh, my phone. Log into this quickly.
Let's get in there.
Well, as David is bringing up, you know, the link, let me just say again, let me put a lot of emphasis on it. Never feel as though you're alone. Always know that there's a team out there that can support you. Never feel as though whatever you're going through, you know, there's no support. And most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, always, there's nothing wrong with being vulnerable. There's nothing wrong with crying. There's nothing wrong with you talking to someone about what you're going through. Self-expression is the key. They say we have freedom of speech, we have freedom of you know, self-expression. So we're just waiting for, you know, Lady Zen to ask a question before we end this. Has Lady Zen put the question?
Yeah, it's not come through just yet. Ouch.
Okay.
Flexibility is still an issue. So, oh God,
I think that's it.
Like a knife in my back sometime and couldn't move at all. Okay, yeah. When we've got back pain, bearing in mind the spine is the
spinal
case.
cord is what we were showing on the back of David's.
Yeah. So the spine is what encases near enough every nerve junction across the human body. It's an amazing piece of kit that we have, and it works exceptionally well when it's working. If you're experiencing extreme back pain, certainly stabbing pains, invariably there is a contact point on a nerve, and that will always need a medical intervention. There may be, you know, alignment issues, there may be any variant of what's causing that contact, but please get it checked by a professional before going down a self-medicating route.
Right. Now, Lady Zen, I do understand what you're saying, and as David is explaining it, there's a nerve test that can be done basically because the nerve goes around the spinal as well. So there can be a nerve because you're indicating the pain is on the left. Yeah. So always try to get the nerves checked out first before you go into the actual spinal.
Yeah.
Don't think it's all spinal. Get the nerve checked. Try to find out what is going on in your body before you go any further. Make an appointment and see a specialist, and then you can move further. Now, also, if anything, you're feeling the pain on your spinal, go to your specialist. Let them do an MRI, not an X-ray. An MRI will give more in-depth information as to what is going on. Ladies and gentlemen, we're over our time. We thank you all for watching. We bid you all a good week. May God bless you, be with you always, and we wish you a well-being, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
Have a good week.
Thank you.
One and all.
Amaze TV is here to restore, rebuild, revive the nation.
We can never appreciate the hardship that creates a feeling of having nothing, but we can create the change that makes a difference. Join us, and together we can have an impact.
It's time for us to change the narrative and extend our humanity to the entire world.
Love is kind. It is not self-seeking. Let us extend our love and kindness in the best possible way we can.
Freely you have received the love of God. Freely give back to society. Extend a blessing to someone out there.
One can chase 1,000, but two can chase 10,000.
We believe in our communities and we believe in our youths. Let's work together and make a difference.
Our world needs you to be a part of a revolutionary change.
United we stand, divided we fall.
Give love.
Show love.
Hashtag Give love, show love.